Tourette's changes, you will change, and your life will change, and what you need will change. You have to learn to work with it. But it's definitely worth it. It's made my life a lot better. I've got a lot more energy just being able to do stuff, but also not being that scared that when I'm at the supermarket, I don't know, shout something horrible. People often ask me how I hold in my tics. So if you're interested in learning more about that, keep watching. Welcome to Boneitch. My name is Luca and I have Tourettes. On this channel I make videos about what it's like to live with Tourettes. Some videos are more educational, some of them are a bit more light-hearted, like TikTok reactions, things like that. Hey. So if you are interested in that type of content, please subscribe so you'll be all set to go. We just hit 500 subscribers a few days ago and I'm so happy about that. I think that's so cool. 500 people, that's a lot of people. That's really cool. So thank you for everyone that's here, really. That means a lot to me. Ever since I started making videos about Tourette's, people have asked me how I hold in my tics. Now, even though I have Tourette's, and the most important characteristic of Tourette's is having tics, and tics are involuntary sounds and movements, I am sometimes able to hold in my tics quite well. And people are quite interested in knowing how I do that. For example, at work, or at the supermarket, or when I'm walking around in public, outside, I can hold in most of my more elaborate tics quite well. And I thought that maybe some people might find that helpful to know how I do that. Of course, these strategies are very personal. They are, my tricks, my tips. You might have to look for other strategies to get going and to become able to hold in your tics. If you have other tips, other ideas, other strategies that work for you, please comment them down below. I'm really interested in learning more, but I also think that might be very helpful for others. So please do that. Thank you. Now the first tip is a bit counterintuitive, but I did a bit of research just to see if I'm not completely wrong. I'm not a professional, I'm just talking from my own experience here, but I saw that this tip was listed quite a bit, even though it's quite counterintuitive, and that's in order to have more control over your tics, the first step is to not try and hold in your tics. Big brain work here, but it makes sense, hear me out. Actively trying to hold in your tics is like trying not to think about a pink elephant. The attention that you're giving to that thought is only going to make the tics worse. So if you put a lot of energy and thought into your tics, they're only going to get worse. Most people with Tourette's will be able to hold in their tics for a little while. Some people can do it for a couple of hours, some just for a minute. But if you don't have Tourette's and you've seen people doing these try not to tic challenges, you see how hard it is to actively try not to tic. And by putting so much energy in suppressing your tics, the pressure is just going to build up and they're going to come out tenfold. I used to do that for over 8 hours a day, every day when I went to work. And that caused me to have very severe tic attacks when I got home, and my energy levels were just gone. I couldn't focus, and my mental health just worsened. It was horrible. And my Tourette's actually got worse. So I don't recommend doing that. If that works for you, just because you're going to a funeral and you have to be quiet for 1 hour and you can do that and you can recover from that afterwards, I mean, of course, do that. I mean, that's all up to you. But to have a long-term, lasting control over your tics, I don't think that exhausting yourself like that is really going to bring you anywhere. So what do I do now that's different? The change is mostly in my personal relation to my Tourette. At first, I felt really ashamed of it. I only got diagnosed a few years ago. I'm 30 years old now. So I grew up having tics, but not knowing that I had Tourette's. And I just thought that that was something wrong with my character, or that it was my responsibility to suppress everything and to not bother anyone with my tics. So because of that, every little tic I had to hold in. So my hand tics, even winking a bit, every small tic that could be noticeable at all, I was suppressing. And that took way too much bandwidth in my brain, and that was not working. And now I've become more comfortable telling people I have Tourette's, or telling people I have tics, or even not telling them if it's not necessary and just letting it be. And allowing myself to have these smaller tics, so tics in my hands or blinking or things like that. And because at work my colleagues know that I have Tourette's, they don't look at me weird when I'm, fiddling with my hands or winking at them or something. So just to allow those tics to come out gives you more energy to work with the more elaborate tics that are things you don't want to do, maybe in public or in general. Tics that might get you into trouble, or the ones that make you really anxious about going out. If you're able to let out those small tics, you have more energy left to focus on those bigger tics. Hey, so what about those elaborate tics? I still don't want to shout something at the office. Now this is just what works for me. Especially with my vocal tics, those are the ones that I feel personally uncomfortable with to tic in public. So what works for me is trying to engage that part of my brain that feels the urge to do the more elaborate tic. This is not a scientific thing, like I don't know exactly what part of my brain that is, but for example, with vocal tics, I overstimulate everything to do with sound. So my brain is just distracted and doesn't feel the urge to make noise anymore. So what I do is I wear my headphones. You'll never see me outside with these headphones at all. At work, because I work in IT, I can just work with my headphones on, and I blast very loud music on my headphones. And because of that, I can't hear myself tic, which already works. But it also kind of distracts this sound part of my brain, if that makes sense. So distraction in general really works. This also helps when you have tic attacks or loads of tics, to do something like dancing around and singing, something that you're focusing on. Singing, for example, really helps because there are loads of muscle groups and things that are engaged in that, making music. There are many studies that show, I don't have any examples of that, but I think we've all seen documentaries and things of people with very severe tics that when they start making music, they just stop ticking. So finding something that you do that calms down those tics can really help. Now, of course, when you're walking down the street, whether you are having vocal tics or start singing, that still doesn't really work. So maybe then putting on the headphones and having that right music that makes you feel like you're in a music video and be distracted by that, that really works for me. With my hands, I just engage my hands, especially something that makes me not think about my hands. So for me, cooking and drawing doesn't really work because I'm thinking and looking at my hands. But gaming or typing, so when I'm coding, I don't look at my hands and I don't think about my hands, but they are engaged, and that really suppresses my hand tics quite a bit. And that really helps because I do this constantly, all of the time, and it really starts to hurt after a while. And if you have tics that are repetitive and painful, you know that when something starts to hurt, you start to tic more because there is some input from that area. So yeah, just to have a bit of a break from that and give my hands a bit of a break by typing or gaming or something like that really helps as well. Then again, it's important not to go overboard with trying to control your Tourettes. If you start fighting against your Tourettes, that usually doesn't end up well. You have to learn to work with it. And that's something you have to learn. And for some people, that's easier than for others. But there are strategies out there and there's therapy out there that help you learn these types of strategies to understand what works for you and to find this sweet spot between having some control but not getting so hyper focused on it that it's only making stuff worse. And there are different strategies, again, for everyone out there, but there will be things that help you. I'm sure of it. And where that spot is will differ from person to person, but also from day to day, from moment to moment. And it's a learning thing. Tourette's changes, you will change, and your life will change, and what you need will change. So you're just going to have to keep working with it. But it's definitely worth it. It's made my life a lot better. I've got a lot more energy just being able to do stuff, but also not being that scared that when I'm at the supermarket, I'll, I don't know, shout something horrible. And it's not perfect and stuff goes wrong sometimes. It's Tourette's, it's unpredictable. I really hope that this helps. Keep working towards it and we can really do this. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Okay. Bye.